Denver, we need to talk about a fight. An actual, real, fists flying scrum broke out at Broncos practice. And instead of being some ugly headline, it might just be the clearest sign yet that this team is built completely different heading into the 2026 season. We are talking about Bo Nix getting popped, a full-blown scrum erupting, and the quarterback himself coming out of it grinning instead of grumbling. On top of that, there is a massive coaching nugget about Jade Baron that could reshape the entire safety room, and a pair of inside linebackers who are quietly turning what many thought was the weakest position on this defense into one of the most exciting storylines of camp. This is Broncos news today, and we are unpacking every single piece of it. So settle in, because this is a loaded episode. Before we get into the fireworks, I need a quick favor from you. This channel is chasing down 1,000 subscribers, and we genuinely believe we can get there with your help. If you have not hit that subscribe button yet, please do it right now. It takes 2 seconds. It costs you absolutely nothing, and it is the number one thing that helps us keep bringing you this kind of raw, detailed Broncos coverage every single day. All right, let's get into the chaos. So here is what happened. Tempers flared at practice today, and it started with a scrum involving Justin Jolie before things really boiled over just a few plays later when Bo Nix himself got dragged into the middle of it. Here is how it went down. Nick Bonito and Malcolm Roach collapsed the pocket and got home on a sack of Bo Nix. Now look, quarterbacks wear a different color jersey for a reason. The quarterback is supposed to be off limits in practice. Nobody is out there trying to actually put a hit on Bo Nix, but mistakes happen, plays get away from you, and when you have got a 295-pound human being barreling downhill with a full head of steam, sometimes contact is simply unavoidable. Bo Nix got up from that sack absolutely furious. He fired the ball down in frustration, and just like that, a scrum broke out. By most accounts, this was the most heated anyone has seen Bo Nix, or really the entire Broncos roster, get during the entire Sean Payton era in Denver. And here's the thing. That is actually a great sign. Not the part where the quarterback is getting hit in a padless practice period. Obviously, nobody wants that. But the raw emotion, the fire, the willingness to snap back when things get chippy, that tells you something real about the mentality of this football team. If you think for 1 second that Bo Nix walked away from that moment embarrassed or apologetic, think again. He said it himself afterward in almost so many words that he loves it, he loves football. That is what football is. And that the physicality, the hits, the intensity, it is exactly what is preparing him for the games that are right around the corner. This team feels like it has got a little more edge to it heading into the season than it did a year ago. And to be clear, that is not a shot at last year's group. A defensive-minded football team naturally carries some grit and some nastiness with it. But this year feels different. This year feels like a team that has something specific to prove, like they are trying to send a message that last season was not some fluke, that this level of football is simply who they are now. And honestly, watching a scrum break out at a mid-August practice, seeing your franchise quarterback come out of it fired up instead of frustrated, that is exactly the kind of energy you want walking into a brand new season. All right, let's shift away from the fists flying and get into some real meaningful practice news, because there was plenty of it today, and almost all of it centers around a defense that keeps getting better by the day. Let's start with a genuinely surprising nugget that came straight from defensive coordinator Vance Joseph himself regarding Jade Baron. Jade Baron already had a fantastic showing against the Atlanta Falcons, but at his press conference, Vance Joseph let something slip that Broncos fans need to pay very close attention to. He explained that Baron plays multiple spots for this defense, and that versatility is going to be extremely valuable. He is out there at nickel, which everybody already knew. He is out there at dime, which was also already known. But then Vance Joseph added something that raised eyebrows, mentioning that Baron does play some safety for this defense as well. Here is why that matters so much. For most of training camp, Sean Payton had been very adamant, almost pointedly so, that Jade Baron was not going to be getting reps at safety. That door appeared closed, but this comment from Vance Joseph suggests that door might be cracked open just enough to matter essentially positioning Jade Baron as a kind of break glass in case of emergency option at safety. And that is genuinely important news, because the third and fourth safety spots on this roster have looked wide open all camp long. Devin Key is an incredible player, but he is more of a dominant special teams weapon, a legitimate all-pro level special teamer, rather than someone you are relying on for extensive defensive snaps. Talanoa, Hafunga, and Brandon Jones are not going anywhere. They are locked into their roles. JL Skinner did play well against the Falcons, genuinely well, but outside of that one performance, there has not been a whole lot to get excited about from him overall. If the Broncos carry 4 safeties this season the way they did a season ago, that group likely looks something like Hafunga, Jones, Skinner, and Key. But here is the scenario worth watching closely. If Brandon Jones or Delano Hafunga were to go down with an injury at any point, Jade Baron sliding into that coverage role suddenly becomes a very real, very comforting possibility. And honestly, even with JL Skinner's solid showing against the Falcons factored in, there is a strong argument that Jade Baron would be the preferred option in that emergency safety role, given his versatility and his track record. Let's talk numbers on Jade Baron for a second. Against the Falcons, he posted an overall PFF grade of 65.4, a coverage grade of 63.0, and an impressive tackling grade of 77.8. He has always profiled as a strong closeout player and a physical, reliable tackler as the slot. Given everything Vance Joseph just revealed, do not be surprised if you start seeing Jade Baron get a handful of legitimate safety reps against the Packers. Maybe not a heavy workload, just 2 or 3 snaps, but enough to confirm that this role is real and that the coaching staff is serious about deploying him there when needed. Now let's pivot to a position group that has quietly become one of the most fascinating storylines of this entire training camp, the inside linebackers. Rookie Reed Murdoch has been putting together an outstanding camp, and against the Falcons specifically, he was arguably one of the 2 best rookies on the entire field, right there alongside Jonah Coleman. Here is a fun detail that speaks to how much trust the coaching staff already has in him. Reed Murdoch was the green dot player on defense, meaning he was the one wearing the communication device and making the defensive play calls out on the field for Vance Joseph, and by all accounts, he handled that responsibility extremely well for a rookie. Physically, Reed Murdoch looks like an absolute loadout there. His frame is wide, athletic, and honestly, a little bit bigger and more imposing than a lot of people initially gave him credit for. He is not necessarily going to be labeled some kind of elite athletic freak at the position, but what he brings to the table instead is outstanding instincts, sharp angles to the football, and real physicality. One of his signature traits already on display is his relentless effort to strip the football on every single tackle attempt. He is constantly working that free hand to try and jar the ball loose, and his closing speed and coverage has genuinely surprised evaluators watching camp closely. There was one specific play against the Falcons that captured everything special about Reed Murdoch. Working out in the seam, he read a check down to a Falcons running back in the flat, closed the gap in a hurry, and delivered a violent strike with his right arm to punch through the football on contact. It did not result in a forced fumble in that particular play, but it absolutely stopped that ball carrier cold and showcased exactly the kind of physical, disruptive tackling he brings on a snap-to-snap basis. On the day, Reed Murdoch finished with 8 total tackles, 7 of them solo, posted an 81.5 tackling grade, and a 69.4 overall PFF grade. And here is maybe the most impressive number of all. 0 missed tackles across the entire game. When Reed Murdoch wraps you up, you are simply not getting away. That is old school, physical Ray Lewis style linebacker play, and it is exactly the kind of identity this Broncos defense wants to build around. But Reed Murdoch was not the only linebacker turning heads today. Veteran Alex Singleton also had himself a genuinely excellent day at practice. It is encouraging to see the player currently penciled in as the starter ahead of Reed Murdoch also playing at an extremely high level. Singleton reportedly looked fired up right alongside the rest of the defense, and the more this unit gets put on tape, the more it feels like this group has a legitimate shot at becoming one of the greatest defenses in Broncos franchise history. Now, matching what that 2016 defense accomplished is an incredibly tall order, arguably the toughest bar in franchise history to clear, but if any Broncos defense has a real shot at doing it, this current group looks like the one. As for Alex Singleton specifically, he intercepted Bo Nix during a practice period today, which is a great sign that his coverage instincts are still very much sharp. He also logged a nice tackle for loss during team drills. All around, an outstanding day for the veteran linebacker. And the good news at inside linebacker does not stop there, because Torian York also had himself a standout day. Torian York, an undrafted free agent out of Texas A&M, delivered a big hit on Justin Jolie over the middle of the field, and that hit was not random. It came directly after Justin Jolie was involved in that earlier scrum we talked about at the top of the show. Torian York reportedly took real personal offense to that scrum and made it a point to go put his stamp on the situation with a physical, emphatic hit over the middle. And that was far from an isolated flash of physicality. Torian York has continued to show more toughness in his overall game than even the most optimistic evaluators originally expected. Everyone already knew he was strong in coverage and reliable against the pass, but the Broncos have leaned heavily on blitzing him out of the linebacker spot throughout this camp, sending him after the quarterback again and again. One particular red zone rep really stood out, where Torian York crept up toward the line of scrimmage out of a base defensive look, immediately split the gap on a handoff read, and became the very first defender to make contact with the ball carrier in the backfield, resulting in a loss of about 2 yards on the play. That is exceptional processing and instincts for a rookie, and it is exactly the kind of playmaking that gets a young linebacker onto the field. Beyond Reed, Murdoch, and Torian York, there is also Kareem Reed pushing hard for reps, having forced an interception of his own against the Falcons. Right now, if you had to hand out that inside linebacker 3 and 4 battle today, Reed Murdoch and Torian York would be the leaders, with a real nod of respect going to Kareem Reed as well. But this entire competition is going to be must-watch throughout the rest of camp. Here is the bigger picture worth zooming out on. Heading into this camp, the inside linebacker room was widely considered the quiet spot on this Broncos roster. Not necessarily bad, but simply not generating the same kind of buzz as the defensive line or the secondary. And look, that read was fair. You have got legitimate stars and all-pro caliber talent scattered across nearly every other position group on this defense. Riley Moss has been outstanding. Jade Baron is now apparently even more versatile than we realized. Pat Surtain is Pat Surtain, arguably the best cornerback alive. The pass rush has been consistently disruptive all camp. Compared to those units, the inside linebacker room simply had not popped in the same way, at least not until now. But what we are watching unfold right now is a position group quietly, steadily building real juice. Reed Murdoch balling out as a rookie. Alex Singleton playing like a savvy, sharp veteran who still has plenty left in the tank. Torian York flashing physicality and blitz production nobody fully expected from him coming out of Texas A&M. Kareem Reed forcing turnovers and pushing the whole room to be better. This might not be the flashiest position group on the Broncos roster, but it is quickly becoming one of the most encouraging storylines of the entire training camp. And it is exactly the kind of quiet, unheralded development that ends up mattering enormously once the real games begin. Before we wrap things up here, I want to ask one more time for your support. If you have made it this far into the video, you clearly care about this team and this kind of detailed breakdown as much as we do. We are working hard toward 1,000 subscribers on this channel, and every single person watching right now has the power to help us get there. So if you are not subscribed yet, please take a moment right now and hit that button. Let's recap everything we covered today. A practice scrum that turned into a genuine statement about this team's mentality, with Bo Nix embracing the physicality rather than shying away from it. A major coaching reveal about Jade Baron potentially serving as an emergency safety option, adding real depth and flexibility to a previously thin position group. And an inside linebacker room that is quietly turning into one of the most encouraging storylines on this entire roster, led by a physical rookie in Reed Murdoch, a steady veteran in Alex Singleton, and a breakout blitzer in Torian York. This Broncos team is heading into the regular season with a real chip on its shoulder, and this channel is going to be here covering every single practice, every roster battle, and every storyline as it develops. So do me one final favor before you go, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more Broncos fans out there. Drop a comment down below telling us which of today's storylines has you the most fired up, the scrum, the Jade Baron reveal, or the linebacker battle. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because we are chasing 1,000 subscribers and we want you along for the ride when we get there. Thank you all for sticking around to the very end. Broncos country, this team is building something special and we will be right here every step of the way covering it. Until next time, take care of yourselves and we will see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.